Welcome back to the show. Guys, we've got David Buck on today, and we're going to talk about what it means. And if you've read his book, and if you haven't, you need to get it. I'm going to put the link down below. It's the time optimized life, right? A life that really starts to have you optimize your life. And he does this in a way that you're going to love, right? Reading this has really been a dynamic change in my life, and I think you'll love where it goes. And I really want to welcome David to the show. David, welcome.
Anthony, such an honor to be here. I appreciate that.
When we start to look at our life's busy, right? I mean, I'm busy, 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 busy. I mean, every morning I'm shot out of a cannon. I run like a Dickens, and sometimes I feel like I am cavitating, right? That space where, if you've ever been a boat that gets, starts cavitating, it's got a lot of movement, but we're not going anywhere, right? There's a little frustration there, and I sometimes can feel like life can get that way.
Very much so. Yeah, I love that analogy too, because, when you're cavitating, you have two choices. You can press to move forward to have more speed, or, which many people don't want to do, is you can actually back off a little bit and slow down and maybe observe things a little bit. And that, to me, optimization is that idea of also understanding, do I need to put the pedal to the metal, or do I need to slow down a little bit and observe my surroundings a little bit more before I put the gas on?
It feels like the wisdom of the ages has said to slow down. In today's now time, it's very rare that I have a chance to slow down. I mean, every moment of my day is somehow another. If I were to give my phone, to my great grandfather, hey, here, take this thing, he would look at me like like this is something of the gods, right? This would have been something of like literally the gods. I mean, the fact that you could see someone around the world, I could poke at it and food would come to me. I could poke at it, a car will come to me, right? I mean, just the things that I could do today compared to their time. There's just so much more data and information coming at us. To slow down just feels so impossible sometimes.
And you just mentioned something, the smartphone, which is the most productive tool that we have been given in our lifetime. It is amazing. But on the flip side of that, it is also the biggest tool that distracts us because it's designed to. You download all these apps, your social media apps, or whatever other applications you put on there, and they're designed to stop you in your tracks and pay attention to it. And that is the single biggest, on the people that I work with, the single biggest challenge is distractions. And the single biggest tool for those distractions is their smartphone.
So let's look at that, because I think I believe the same thing. I really do believe that we are losing our ability to focus. Now, I don't remember ever being in a class where they stopped and said, "Hey, Anthony, we're going to teach you to meditate." Now, maybe there was a period of I got in trouble for being angry, right? Fighting or whatever was happening. And I don't know. One of the things I had to do was, do a little bit of some personality retraining. And part of it had a little bit of meditating in there, but I struggled with it. I always felt like I'm never going to get this right. I would slow down to try to meditate, and asteroids would go through my brain the whole time. It was like literally this idea. What about this? What about that? And I just noticed how my brain has become addicted to just this, it's kind of like just constant barrage of ideas and thinking. To slow it down, to be able to get to a place where I'm really consciously aware. That I don't think I've ever been trained on on how to do that properly.
And focus is, as a category I work with, again, that is a big challenge. The idea that people have is I have to get it instantaneous because that's what distractions do. In that case, they give us what we need instantaneously. So your example of trying to find meditation, quiet time, prayer, whatever the vehicle is you're going to do, people automatically say, I'm going to do it instantaneously. And I have to say, no, you have to stop. And even if you give yourself 10 seconds, I'm going to be quiet for 10 seconds and I'm going to work on that little increment until I get that down. Then maybe I go to 30 seconds. It's all incremental. And that's what I try to challenge people is patience and incrementalism. The amazing thing about when you try to optimize your time is small changes create big results over time. So stick with it, stay with it, and you can then find where you're struggling in one area. When you improve there, you may be improving in other areas and not even realize it.
Yeah, for sure. There were some spots, I never read a whole book when I was a kid, right? I would read Cliff Notes. I'd read part of books. I'd read the beginning. I'd read the end. I maybe grab a couple of key chapters. I just kind of, no one ever taught me the enjoyment of reading. It wasn't something, I wasn't great at it. I didn't know how to spell very well. And all that kind of connected made me not really enjoy reading. Not till I'm 48 do I actually read an entire book. And from there, it's been this wonderful journey of, and the reason why I bring it up is because I feel like it became my first form of meditation, right? It gave me the ability to have one thought at a time. I could just focus on the black letters that were in front of me. And if I just read right down the line and went down, I just read right down the line, I could focus a little bit more. And like to your point, at first, my first, 10, the first book or two that I read, I couldn't remember the first word of the sentence I was reading.
Then the thing I love about reading too, because I read also, is that I make sure to read fiction. I'm a science fiction fan, so I read science fiction because that, in essence, I had a college professor that said that's escapist literature. It is. It is. It lets me step out of what I'm thinking and doing about right now and puts me someplace else for a while. And then when I need to, I get back into it. And then I also read, try to keep up on latest trends, business, whatever. Some of those I may go back to your Cliff Note versions. I'm like, what are the key things I want to get out of this either book I'm reading or whatever? And it may deserve my full-time investment, or it may be I'm going to go through this and glean out what I can from it.
Yeah. So as you're looking first, let's go back a little bit. How do you get interested how do you get interested and start to work with people? I mean, I know that you do a lot of consulting work and it's got a little bit of a basis in that. Let's talk a little bit about the people that you work for, the organizations that you work for, and why you decided to write the book.
Well, first off, if I can, to write the book first is where I got this idea is I have always been fascinated by time since my career, and heavy, heavy, heavy on the sarcasm here. But when I started my career, I was in sales. And I knew right away that these amazingly stunning good looks and charisma, it wasn't going to get me anywhere. And so I learned I was better prepared. And as I was better prepared than my competition, that usually got me in the door. But then what kept me in the door was my ability to use my time well, but also help my client use their time well. Because then they looked at me and said, it's so easy to do business with Dave. That led to me having this fascination that ultimately took me in that direction. But as I began to work with people and my clients on how can I help you improve your productivity, what I found was some common trends and patterns, and I use an assessment with them. And that I'm like, after that, I'm like, I got all this data that I collected. I have where they're good, where they're not. I'm like, I have the outline for a book here. And so I really started to research and unpack that. And that ultimately led to the Time Optimized Life.
That's interesting. As I work with, uh, people, I really do feel like we're more distracted than ever before, right? I mean, you go to any desk in the world, you've got their screen, you've got their keyboard, but what's right between it? The cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phone sitting right there. They've got a cell phone. They've got an office phone. The amount of stuff that takes distraction out. I mean, just the amount of distraction in a given day of a teammate. Uh, and we set these criteria. I literally just left a meeting before I walked in here, And even though that team has a really clear path of an exact path of travel for the work that they do, right? There's a flow chart and a narrative and a deliverables and a timing, and they have clearly defined, what to do there. There seems to still be this big disconnect in what actually happens, right? There's this like distract. Now, I can relate that to myself. If you were to put a tracker on me, right? If you were to put a tracker on me, I literally follow the same path almost every day. I get up at 5, I brush my teeth, I shave, I hit the potty over there, and I I come out of there, I come downstairs, I turn on all the lights in the living room, I go make coffee, I turn that light on, I go open the front door for the people that are going to show, because I work and live in the same building. I open the door for them. I come back and I drink some coffee, and then I go to the gym, and I'm there at exactly 5:29, and they open the door at 5:30. And I love being there right as the guy opens the door. Like, there's something about that here, and I follow the system. And what I notice is that I am feeling very strong, right? I feel stronger than I felt in years. But the truth is, my goals for the year weren't to be strong. My goals for the year were to be 200 pounds and to be able to touch my toes. Now, I'm achieving some other things, but the goals that I want to do, I'm not doing. I'm still eating. I had ice cream last night. I had pasta this weekend. The things that are going to get me to my goal, I know what they are. I know what the behavior is, but the knowledge isn't there. It's the actions that get there. But I distract myself with all this other stuff. Well, I'm strong. I feel really strong. I'm good. I mean, it's the gym. I was up at 5. And I feel like that happens in business all day. There's kind of this distraction of busyness that, even though there's some effect, I'm not saying it's completely useless, but the teams aren't making their sales numbers, or they're not turning over a project on time, or their budgets are off, or some version of that is being missed. But I'm strong. Right? Whatever that version is for them. But I feel strong, but making it to 200 pounds and touching my toes isn't being achieved. So it's really I feel like the proof is in the pudding, or in the outcome, right? The proof is in what's actually happening. And even though I justify I'm strong, the outcome isn't what I really am trying to get. So I think that's where, when you start to talk about, where it was attracted to, was the whole idea that I can now optimize to get the things I actually want, and not get distracted by all the, I'm strongs of the day.
Now and I like your analogy you use in your own example of, you established a goal of 200 pounds and to be able to touch your toes. Now, what you also had behind that was at least a plan to try to get there with some discipline. So many times, whether it's on our personal life or I've seen it at business, there is this great goal that's established, and you throw that out there. Now, everyone scrambles to try to reach that goal, but people then begin to procrastinate, because it's kind of like, okay, 200-pound goal, I'll go do something else. Instead of going to the gym, I'm going to get up and go meet a friend for breakfast, or I'm going to do this. So the challenge that I push people is, take what you're doing and you have to break it down to the lowest common denominator, and then work your way back up. So if part of that 200 pounds is to say, I'm at the gym every morning at 5:30 for X amount of time, then you add the other elements. What's my diet like? What am I going to do? Even down to the fact of, when I go grocery shopping, what's my list, so that I'm getting the right things that help me achieve my goal. This happens all the time in business, where an entrepreneur sets a wonderful goal that they have in their mind that they think they're going to make, but then they don't invest the time at the other elements of the company, so that that goal means something to the sales team. That goal means something to operations, because they know what they have to do, to marketing, to all the other areas. And that's where I find that people then procrastinate, because it's kind of like, I don't know what to do, so I'll figure something else out that, quote, makes me strong and feel good.
Yeah. It feels like I get distracted by all these other things. And, I get it. Like, all right, maybe, I like eating what I eat. Right. My wife made, chicken parm last night with pasta on the side. I'm like, let's see, it had breaded chicken, it had pasta, and I'm sitting there going, I love that. My wife, she's an amazing cook, and it was too late in that moment to make a difference, right? To make the difference, it really talk about what your book talks about is, I it's too late in the moment. I got to start optimizing before I get to the chicken parm, right? It's in
Yes.
optimizing my time or my behavior doesn't happen there. It happens beforehand. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I have a three-pronged approach when I talk about optimization. The first of those, which we've been talking a lot about, is preparation. You cannot dive into something without preparing ahead of time. Now, people do well when we all get late breaking things that come our way. It's the nature of life. But it's when you don't do any planning that the last in, first out routine becomes a permanent element of what you do in your life. So preparation is the key. Once you've prepared, then you jump into the second, which is called execution. I'm going to go execute what I've prepared. Now, I might start doing it and saying, this is all wrong. I'm not going to achieve what I prepared for. So you have a decision to make. Either I adapt how I'm executing, or I stop what I'm doing and I go prepare some more. Maybe I didn't prepare right. And then the third element is control. What am I going to do to control the outcomes that I want here? And does that mean I have to readjust my execution, or do I have to go all the way back and prepare some more? Those three, preparation, execution, and control, work in tandem continuously so that you achieve the goal that you want to at a level of satisfaction. It might not be in the time frame that you figured out it was going to be, but you achieved it at a satisfaction level that you wanted.
Well, let's talk about that because I feel like the breakdown happens in the control, right? I say today, hey, I'm not going to eat pasta or eat ice cream, or I'm going to eat healthy all day. Today I'm going to fast. I'm going to fast, and I was clear that this morning I was going to fast. Right, clear. I was not going to eat. My last meal last night was let's see, probably 6:30, 7 o'clock. I had that pasta and that chicken parm, and I'm like, all right. So today, what I'll do is I'll wait. I'm not going to eat until 1 o'clock. Now, I went and dropped off the Tesla. It had a repair shop, and right next door is my favorite Jewish deli. You ever been to Manny's? You ever been to Manny's in Chicago?
No.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
Okay. Look, you're down in Jacksonville. You have any of those good New York delis down there?
You have to go further south in Florida to get the really good
Well, you got
New
to go
York
to Boca,
delis.
like down in Boca
Yeah,
Raton. They got
exactly.
yeah,
Boca
like that.
South. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
down in Boca. I grew in Boca, and it's like,
Yeah.
look, you can get one of those pastrami sandwiches that, like, I call it Jewish soul food, right? I mean, like I couldn't stop myself. I literally could not stop my car. It drove itself to Manny's, and all of a sudden I'm eating I'm gonna fast until 1. At 11:30, I'm eating a pastrami sandwich this morning at Manny's. Now, I'm not, I guess I made to the gym today. I'll justify, but it's almost like some of those behaviors go unconscious, right? And they're so built in that my ability to say no to myself, it's like an addictive behavior almost. It's almost like this addictive, uh, you know, um, unconscious behavior that I know pastrami is probably not on. No, it's definitely not on my foods to eat list for if I want to get to 2:30. But tell that to my brain when it sees a pastrami sandwich, or even the name Manny's, or like even the word Manny's, right? Just like it's like they're there, and I don't know. Talk about that. Like how do we break those? What are those skill sets? What are those skills that when we go to optimize, right? And we find ourselves in these little self-perpetuating traps we keep jumping into. What are the things we do to stop and break those?
So you I think astutely pointed out about the control mechanism. So in this case, you go to Manny's, you have your pastrami. And by the way, if there's anybody listening that's in Jacksonville and there's a good Jacksonville deli, you need to let me know. I don't want to discount that there could be one up here. So,
All right.
so
Well, listen, if you got there's definitely some good food out there at Jacksonville.
yes,
Out there on the
yes.
waterway. It's just
Yeah.
definitely some great stuff out there.
So please feel free. You can correct my thoughts for me when this drops. But in the case of that situation, you're in a case where okay, I've fallen outside of what I wanted to do. I've had a wonderful deli sandwich I shouldn't have. So now the control aspect says I have already done an action. Now I have to say, what's my adaptation to my execution? Does it mean that I push my fasting off till tomorrow? Does it mean that the rest of the week I adjust my eating habits in order to do that? Does it mean I'm going to go to the gym one more time?
Mm.
And then if you're kind of like, oh, I can't adapt that, then maybe you go back up and prepare and say, I need to look at, because my behaviors aren't working, I need to readjust the initial setup that I have, because clearly I need to maybe put myself not to be in a position that I'm next to a Jewish deli all next week. So I don't break that. So you look at those two. So you don't beat yourself up for the action that you took, because you've got to give yourself grace. But then you have to say to yourself, okay, I didn't do what I wanted to do. Fine. It's not the end of the world. Here's the other two elements I can do to figure out so that I can either get back on track or adjust what I'm doing to ultimately achieve my goal.
Yeah, like those incremental attaboys instead of the shame.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely something there, because when I do shame, like, oh, you suck. I can't believe you ate the deli. Oh my God, you're terrible. The next thing I get is the efforts. I'll never be good at this. Might as well just enjoy the sandwich. Like the justifier kicks in or shame kicks in. And, like if I can't do it perfect today, I can't do it at all ever. Right. And it becomes this like repeating circuit I feel like you hardwire a circuit in that says, I'm going to lose. I'm going to miss this. I'm never going to be able to get this. But it's likewise, when I start to get it and make the couple of days of not eating inappropriately, or same thing with time, right? If same thing happens with my time, I've been taking this flight test to become a pilot. And when I want to distract myself, I can, I was studying the other day, and it was, I'm supposed to be studying, but all of a sudden I was studying I was studying in this room, and all of a sudden I notice I'm in here redecorating the place. And I'm like, hey, get back to studying, right? Those behaviors that you just catch yourself doing, and that or at least for me, my brain has this way of distracting things that I don't necessarily want to do, but I know I need to do.
And that is a challenge for just about probably 70% of those that I work with. It's a common issue. I love the examples you're bringing up, because this is everyday life.
Yeah.
These are just simple. You're going, okay, I meant to study, and then I have been guilty of it myself, where all of a sudden, before I know it, you mentioned it's kind of brain memory, muscle memory is I have had my phone in my hand on a social media platform going, I don't remember picking my phone up. I don't remember opening the app. I just remember now I'm responding to someone else's post that I thought was funny. And that's when you have to stop and say, not beat yourself up, and say, okay, put it down. The same thing when you're in a position where you need focused time. That's where I say you've got to invest time beforehand. Is this the right environment for me to do this focused time? And if it's not, don't start, and then say, it doesn't have to be at that moment. Say, I'm going to plan it later when I'm in a quiet area, when I can do stuff. And so you prepare again for what you're going to do. If the execution isn't right and you say, gosh, I really need to study, then I got to maybe move to a different area, get out of here, or do something else. And then again, it's about, I want to study for an hour, so you control the outcomes.
It's funny how the to control the outcomes, right? To get to those outcomes, those spots where The brain, it's kind of, I don't get it, because if the brain really is here to help me survive, right? If my brain's kind of built to as a survival mechanism, right? I mean, it doesn't let me act on all my behaviors. I mean, all I'd want to do is eat ice cream, fool around, and watch TV, right? I mean, but my brain is here to go. All right, look, long-term survival means staying healthy. Long-term survival means taking care of the people around it, right? Logically, I know that. Unfortunately, that and some of my primitive brain. Oh, look, Manny's. you know, they're in conflict with each other. And I think that's one of the most ironic things about being a human is the irony between having the information and even the desire, right? Even having knowledge and information and desire. Like I know, like in the moments when I said, I'm going to fast last night, I was crystal clear. I wasn't like making that up. There wasn't anything like I was BSing. I literally in that moment believed I would do that. And then the moment I saw Manny's, it was like, well, so much for that. Yeah, even while I was at Tesla to drop all the car off, I noticed I was a little hungry. I'm like, yeah, there was a little coffee bar there. I'm like, I'm not going to eat. They had a bunch of snacks at the Tesla. They do it really well. You go to Tesla because everything Tesla is cool. I mean, listen, you don't think I like Tesla, do you? You think
No,
I think?
yeah,
No, yeah.
it's an amazing vehicle.
Yeah, and everything about them I love, right?
Yeah.
You walk in their showroom and their thing, and they got snacks and coffee things, and yeah, I could have gone, a couple hundred calories, and I didn't. Like for some reason, it was fine. Drive out, and Manny's is around the corner. Well, different story.
Well, and that's where you have to say, so you determined a goal that you had established the night before. What then are you going to do during the course of the day to proactively remind you of that before you hit that critical decisions of Manny's or not? So do I need to send a reminder to myself? Again, I'm talking about using this
Yeah,
phone that's a
yeah.
distraction, but do you do something that reminds you? Do you have do you tell your wife or an accountability partner that says, tomorrow I'm fasting. I need you to call me at 11 o'clock to ensure that I'm going to hold fast with what I'm doing, pun intended there. So there's things that you can do over the course of leading up to that set you up as reminders, because the busyness of the day can very much take us away from the fact that, hey, I didn't plan to have 3 meetings and now I'm starving and it's 11 o'clock. I didn't plan on that. And so what can you do to get yourself locked back into what you wanted to hold yourself accountable for?
Dave, you know what I thought I was going to do? I'm going to sew my lips shut. If I sew them shut, the problem is I'd figure out a way to snort a Manny sandwich.
Right, there you go.
I'd figure it out. I'd be up there like, I could snort this thing. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from, but
you'll have a tube. You'll have a tube going in. What's that? It's the pastrami.
If you've ever had a Manny sandwich, I think you'd find a way to, it's crazy. The brain's crazy, right? It's crazy. I love that. So you start to really work on this stuff, and one of the other ones I love about what you talk about is starting to optimize your life for retirement, right? I mean, because this is another one that like I'm 57. I can see retirement. I'm not quite there yet, but I can see where I'm heading, and I have a desire to get there. And you start to line that up. Like, what am I going to do in retirement? How many friends that retire and die? How many people retire and are miserable? Right? Because a lot of what I've gotten out of my life, a lot of who I am, is this work that I do. Right? I watched my stepfather do that. He worked for Pratt and Whitney for 50 years. Right? I mean, I don't know, 35 years he worked for Pratt and Whitney, and he got forced into early retirement. And who he was that job, right? Mm-hmm. Everything about it, like he just, I'm Bob, and I'm Bob Fisher, and I'm he was a manager at Pratt and Whitney. Like that was who he was, part of who he was. And now you take that away from him, and he waffled for a bit. How many times he could play golf? He went and played golf with his friends and realized, at his age, he couldn't play golf every day. Tried. Some injuries got him, but then you see him kind of waffle from there on out, kind of lose that part that gets you up every day, right?
There are I bucket, there are four predominant attitudes heading into retirement life for people. The first one is, I call it, they are enthused and excited. So they're looking for that mic drop moment. They're looking for the last day of work when they can walk out the door, literally into the sunset, turn around and see the sunlight glistening off of the tears of all their former employees because they're so sad that they left. So those are the first. They usually have retirement life fairly well planned out, but may not be structured well. The second group is the militant group. Those are the ones that are just going to say, I am never retiring. I'm going to work until I die. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just tell you statistically, that's probably not going to happen because at some point physically or even cognitively or both,
Yeah.
you're going to have to make an adjustment. The third group is just those who are just going to ignore. I'm just going to ignore this is coming at my way. I really don't care. I'm just going to keep going until some external thing, i.e., a forced retirement, early retirement happens. And then the last group are those that are really just going to look at retirement as something somebody else does. It's just not something that I do. It's something that somebody else does, and I don't necessarily have to do what they do. Well, you can hone in and own one or all of those, but the challenge you're going to face is age is going to catch up to you with you, and you're going to have to make some adjustments. So if you want to work in quote retirement, fine. And if you want to continue doing what you're doing, fine. But you got to have a plan at some point on what life is going to be like when you slow down.
I think the same thing for this morning. I worked out with a guy. Him and his wife both were at the gym at the same time. Both showed up. One rode her bike there, or her husband or wife rode her bike there, and the husband drove there. And you could tell they just became empty nesters, and they don't know what to freaking do with each other. I think they hate each other. I mean, and I get it. I mean, you've had these kids that you've been working on for all these years. Now all of a sudden you become empty nesters, and I don't think there was a planning or even much work or even any work to say, okay, at some point it's going to be the two of us. If we're going to go into the sunset here together, we're going to have to do some work on us. Because look, maintaining a healthy, vibrant relationship that's dynamic and enthusiastic, and maintain that love action, those behaviors that keep you, passionate. And I don't know, I kind of have this fantasy. I'd like to really enjoy my time with my wife as I get older. And, right now we've got all these, so my judgment this morning was they're suffering from they haven't optimized preparation for just the two of them.
So in divorce rates of those 65 and over are some of the highest in any age group. And one of those reasons is if you look at the amount of time that you're going to spend together, again, if both are working 48 hours a week and they sleep 7 hours in their careers, and there's many two-career families, one or both of them is spending 40% of their awake time away from the other in a job. Take that away, and you go into retirement. Both of you have chosen to stop working, and you are now spending at least 40% more time together. And some couples love that. Others, for example, I was working with a couple, first session with them, and I asked the wife, I said, when are you going to retire? And they're both in their early 60s. And she says, I'm retiring in 2 years. And I said to the husband, I said, so when are you going to retire? He goes, I'm going to retire at 75. The wife's head snapped to the right and said, oh, hell, you're not. Because they hadn't had that conversation. And these folks have been married for decades. They hadn't even had that conversation. So I think what you brought up is so critical. Start having those conversations in your 50s and decide what's my alone time I want to work with. What do I want to do alone? What's important to me? Then what do you want to work on together? What's that together time? Because you want your retirement life to be diverse. But if you have a spouse or significant other, this is an amazing time for you to experience things together and get even closer.
Well, nobody tells you that it's going to take some work, right? There's no like, hey, in order to have a dynamic, relationship, um, to be a long-term relationship, you know, you've seen those couples sitting at breakfast and just not talking to each other, right? It's really easy. It's air. By the way, you and I are easy to be friends, right? We two guys writing books, kind of growing a business, growing ideas. And look, you don't know anything about me. I haven't done anything to you yet. And hey, we may have a desire to have friends. Hey, and somewhere we have this good man affair. We have friend. It's easy now, right? It's easy. Look, I haven't been married to you I haven't been missing the hamper for 35 years.
Right.
I haven't not fooled around with you every time I wanted to fool around with you for 35 years. You haven't barked at every time you drive for 35 years. I haven't, right? We don't have that in our relationship yet, but 35 years of being married with somebody and all those little things build up inside of there. Like if it was a carburetor, it'd be really hard for the engine to get air, right? The relationship to get air. You got all this buildup of stuff, right? It's easy in the new relationships. It's, and a lot of times, a lot of us are told just to stop moving our lips and we kind of eat it. But the truth is, it's like that. Oh my God, that guy, my God. Can you believe she did? Can you again? When was the last time she kissed me? She didn't kiss me enough. I married her. I'm going to be married to that woman. She can't even kiss me. Right. I mean, can you believe he missed the hamper again? Or he pissed on the toilet? Right? How many times you can't pick up the lid or something, whatever the complaint. I don't know what the complaint is, but every one of us has them, right? I mean, you say married long enough, they're in the relationship, and somewhere there has to be a little bit of an accounting, a bloodletting, and unfortunately, it ends up a lot of times in divorce.
Yes, divorce. There's as I mentioned, a huge divorce rate for people in retirement, and also that dynamic is when you leave a career, on average, 50% of your social network goes away.
Yeah.
And so that's where your spouse or partner can be an amazing resource for that relationship fulfillment, or it can exasperate all the challenges you're going through right now because you're spending more time with them. So I push people right now, really, whatever age you are, really look at your life, do a relationship audit and say, who are those must-have people that I want in my life that I'm going to pour my time into, regardless of whether they're going to give me back equal amount of time or not, because I know I want them around when I need them because they bring me value. And I'm sure you bring them value too, so that when my social network starts to shrink, I have this amazing group of people that I have deep, close relationships with.
Challenging, right? Look, audience, how many of you guys are going through the same thing? You're going through, it's an idea, it's things that are causing, talk about what you've done, right? I think it's one of the places the social structures I feel that we miss is in those who are doing it and doing it well, being able to pull and help the other ones up there, right? And from a place of gratitude. In fact, I really do believe that you get it. The more that you work with others and supporting them, the more that you get it, right? I mean, I always feel like when somebody else gets that I get it, right? It's always in giving it away that I actually get the action behaviors I'm looking for. So I feel like there's this, maybe it came from the 50s. I don't know. Maybe it came from some social structure of Christianity. I don't know where it came from, but to be able to say, I need help. I'm not sure how to do this. Hey, Bob, or hey, David, or hey, Joe. Hey, guys, I'm struggling with my relationship with my spouse, and I don't have, look, there was obviously some time I loved her. Now I think she hates me and I hate her. And, if we don't do something about this, we're going to lose each other. And maybe, you've got all this investment and you're going into the most valuable time of your life for that relationship. I mean, the whole reason why you trudged this road together was to have someone to live with in retirement, to enjoy each other in retirement. Now you get the efforts. Like if I can't do it a little bit right, I'm not doing it at all, and it becomes and those resentments can come in on both sides. I mean, look, she's got just as much stuff to complain about as I do. So
Yeah.
like a social structure that's missing there. Like a social structure where each of us, those who have come before us, can reach back and give a hand to those that are coming to say, all right, hey, here's some ideas on, how to do that.
Well, there is a lot of guilt and shame, not placed, well placed guilt and shame, because you get people who have worked all their lives really, really hard. To your point, you mentioned earlier about how for many, the career, particularly after kids leave the nest, the career becomes the single most defining thing for many in their lives. And so when you head off, there's a lot of people who feel guilty. Like, I'm going off, I'm now not working while others have to. They feel shame because they're kind of like, I'm not going to be doing the things that I have. I'm there, what's going to get me up in the morning? And that's where you have to stop and say, invest time on the quote left side before your age hits where you jump onto the right into post career life. Spend time figuring out, what do I think retirement's going to be like for me? And I encourage you, start, if you want to retire at 65, then start planning at 55, because you want to get a flavor about what life is like. And also, if you're kind of like, I really would like to continue working, but I don't want to work at the pace I am, we are in an amazing time when companies are more apt to negotiate with you. So if you're a VP, a CTO, whatever you are in your company, you have so much tribal knowledge that if you're kind of like, listen, I'd like to continue to contribute, but maybe not at the level that I am. And I realize I can't stay as the CFO of the company because you're going to need somebody in there, but I want to be able to still contribute. Companies are more open to negotiate and talk about that more than ever, where maybe you work for 3 months and you're off 3 months. Maybe you do a big project. Maybe if it's end of year reporting, you dive in to work on that, or you've got compliance. You can figure out something. Companies are more open to that.
I'm there. I love keeping people with longevity around. There's even if they go to a part time structure somewhere where they come in, a few days a week. They have more vacation days than they did before. But there's something about having those people with the long term, like you talked, that tribal knowledge, right? The one that has, that's got the history, and it brings something to the new people. There's actually a stability, a strength, a wisdom that they bring to them, and even maybe even a cultural value to some of that longevity. Interesting conversation. I'm going to go back a little bit. You talked a little bit about starting to practice that retirement. One of the things that my wife and I are doing, we're doing this 1 month, 3 month vacation practice, right? Where we're trying, we got a 1 month vacation planned, right? We've done a couple of those now over the last couple of years. We've done a couple of 1 month vacations, and now we're there. We have a good friend of ours that we're retirement buddies, people that we've been friends with for years, and they're challenging us to take a 3 month vacation, right? To take it and man, the thought of that, even the thought of that right now, like I don't know if I could do it. Right? There's a little fear in my brain at thought of taking a 3 month vacation.
Well, you're at a month. So again, talk about the incrementalism. Maybe then it's the next one's a 6 weeks, then it's a 2 months. And it sounds to me, Anthony, that obviously you've got good people around you that you even, because I have entrepreneur owners who are like, I can't leave the business, because if I leave the business, the team I have is gonna run it into the ground. I said, even taking a week's vacation, and I have to be fully connected. And then to me, it's a structure issue. It doesn't mean on your month vacation you're totally off the grid. You can be, but I think the idea of you being comfortable, or somebody being comfortable to say, I'm going to build a team around me that they can operate without me being there for a period of time until such time as strategy. If I gotta map out a new strategy or something like that, then I need to be. So then it becomes incremental. You are doing some amazing pre-retirement figuring out here. So kudos to you all. That's fantastic.
But that entrepreneur that can't see leaving his office or her office for a week, that's all nonsense, right? That you don't have a company, you have a job, right? I mean, now I say that only because I've paid thousands of dollars to have people come in and trainers come in and call me out on that. Right. I mean, I remember I had this one beautiful trainer. She comes in and she's this wonderful woman, Lola Wright, great woman, great trainer. She comes in my office one day. She goes, today we're gonna lock you in your office. I go, what, Lola? She goes, yeah, we're gonna lock you in your office. I'm like, great. I'm gonna focus. And today, people have an open door policy. People come to my office all day. And she goes, no. We're locking you in. I go, what do you mean, Lola? She goes, you got all these amazing people out there, and you keep running out there, stepping on their air hose. You have some need to pull the S out on your chest all day. Ask yourself, or sit behind this door, and every time you think you need to go out there, just think about that. Like you have these amazing human beings, and you take away all their power. Now, I'm not going to say everything was perfect. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but the more that first couple of weeks, it was, and she goes, you get 7 one-on-one. I have 7 leaders that run the different parts of the company. And when I first started this, I'm like, oh, great. All right. Every week I'm going to have a meeting with them. I'll go through their schedule. I go, all right, you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. I'm going to have like a task list for them. And I don't do any of that. Those one-on-one meetings are more about how their families are doing, how they're doing. We talk about people in their department. Like personally, I very rarely need to do task-oriented conversations. We've got great people. Now, every once in a while, I'll help them in ideas or logic or theory, right? I try to do some theory coaching with them, but it's not task-oriented, right? They got task-oriented. And I think that's the gift for the entrepreneur that feels like I can't ever leave my office, or I can't do that without them or without me. If I'm not here, it'll all fall to pieces. One, that comes from a lower me, that lower part of me that, and I look, at least for me, I can see the part of me that never graduated college, the part of me that gets justification for the business that I run, right? I'm going to show you guys, look, I must be valuable. Look, see the business I run, right? And that was all like a lower me, like, I was using the business to prove who I was. And, in that, but that was a gift, right? Like noticing that, going, look at you. You're justifying who you are by, running these people around all day long. You must be important because you're the center of attention. And it really became kind of, you were the bottleneck, right? My actions, behaviors became the bottleneck. And you're like, all right, how can I change that? If I'd like to go somewhere different where I'm not the bottleneck, and that took, so she locked me behind that door. And I remember the first week, I was like, I had to bite my lip. They're going to mess this up. And oh my God. And,
Well, that's the time optimization aspect on a team scale. In essence, the tasks to me are up to the individual to figure out their own tasks. I don't like it when leaders get down to the task level. The leaders, in my opinion, they need to establish the KPIs, the key performance indicators, those outcomes leading, not lagging indicators. Because so many times people say, hey, I've got a KPI where I want to do 30 million this year. That's not a KPI. That's a result of what all the other actions are going to happen to do that. So when leaders clearly define what are the important things that they need to get done, then the team individually says, okay, I've got my responsibility of this ultimate strategy that the boss has laid out. What do I have to do to lay the tasks out to achieve that? And that's where the leader has to trust that other person on their team that they're going to figure it out, or to be there for coaching and guidance to say, hey, either the person says, I need some help, or they say, you're falling short. Tell me what you're doing, and let's walk through those elements so that you can then optimize what you're doing. And again, it's a series of everyone figures out their own ways that works best for them to achieve their goal that then achieves the ultimate strategy.
Yeah, figure out the strategy that's going to get you to the goal that you're looking for. Not get you somewhere. Don't confuse going somewhere with meeting what you want to do. Look, don't just because you're strong. If losing weight and being flexible was my goal, being strong is not a valuable. It's not valuable with some way, but don't use it as justification. It will take us out. So I love it. David, I think I want to make sure that the audience gets that you come in and do consulting with firms and companies. Let's talk a little bit about that and how you do it, and kind of how you set up and get started, so that they can kind of see if they want to work with someone that does some optimization, what you do with them.
Sure, thank you. So in the case of what I call the in-career portion of things, so I'll work with either an individual leader, or it'll be a individual team, and maybe in the entire business. It all starts where they take my assessment, the time management analysis. That becomes the foundation, so I can break it to category levels at an entire company down to the individual needs, and it's all customized related to that. And I work through series of systems and plans that individual, then team and company can be more productive. The second element I work with is on the post-career or retirement side of life. I work with individuals and couples, but I also work with financial advisors and their firms, because they have to help their clients navigate through this. And it's the same process. There's an assessment for that. We identify their unique individual challenges. And the idea ultimately is for them to come out with a strategy that's adaptable, so that as life changes, they can go back and adapt that strategy. And whether you're in career or post career, ultimately, it's about giving yourself more flexibility in life.
There you go. Audience, if you want to find yourself with way more flexibility, get the book. Look, get his book. Start with that, and it's a great way to really dive in to start looking at how to create this, the time optimized life, right? A life that it's lived the way you want to live it, right? A life that achieves the outcomes you're looking for. It's available. I'll put all the links down below to where you can buy the book, and make sure any other contact information, David, where people can get a hold of you if they want to bring you in for themselves or their organization. What's the best way for them to reach you?
So they can reach me at dave@kmstime.com, kmstime.com, or they just want to go to my website at infinitylifestyledesign.com. They can start at the front page and they can see, if they're a retiree, they can go to the direction of that. If it's a business leader or owner or wants to do that. And on there, by the way, on the front page, they can take either one of the assessments for free and get a free summary report. So they can even get an idea of, well, where would I start? That assessment will help you start.
That's awesome. Take that assessment, guys. Go take this on right now. Go to the website one more time. Infinity Lifestyle. Infinity Lifestyles.
Design.com.
Design.com. And I'll put the link down below. Audience, please do that now. Come on, take that. Go take that assessment. Go run in there and take a look at that. Order the book. Try it on. Look, we're always looking for ways to maximize our lives, right? That's really what this podcast is about, is a way to really find a way to really maximize the lives that we're living in the way that we want to live them, right? In the adventureful life, and really making this life an adventure. And David, I'm really proud of having you on here. Your book is amazing. I really enjoyed the reading of it, and I hope that I can have you on again anytime you have a new breakthrough, a new idea. I'd love to have you back on the podcast and work with our audience.
What an honor, Anthony. I had a great time. For me, time flew by, so I consider that well worth my time. Thank you.
Audience, as always, take a second and like and subscribe. Last week we broke our 27,000 downloads. So this is our subscribers, and it's amazing what's going on. We had over 40% of you that made it to the end of the podcast that were not subscribers. If you can just take a second and do that for Dave and I now, and Joe and Connor and the guys in the background that run the podcast, it means the world to me and to the guests that we have. Really does show that our audience is here and present. And if you could tell us a little bit about how you're optimizing your life, how you're preparing for retirement. Talk a little bit about some of the ideas that you have that you want us to talk about in the podcast. Get that in the comments down below. And we are so grateful for you always being here and listening. Thanks for being here.